Thank you all for coming. So, parents, relatives, friends, guests, faculty, returnees from the classes of 2020 and 2021, and graduates of the class of 2022. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 131st Stanford commencement exercises and to the diploma ceremony in international relations. I'm Ken Schultz. I'm a professor of political science and I'm faculty director of the International Relations program. I'm delighted to be joined on stage today by a number of faculty who teach in the IR program, and I just wanted to briefly introduce and acknowledge them. There's Yasmina Boych, lecturer in international relations, Rose Gottemoeller, Stephen C. Hazy Lecturer at the Center of International Security and Cooperation, Pavel Latomsky, lecturer in international relations, Robert Rakove, lecturer in international relations, Steve Stedman, senior fellow at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies, and Gili Vardi, lecturer in history and international relations. Since international relations is an interdisciplinary program, many of the faculty who played a key role in teaching and advising our undergraduates are scattered across campus today at similar ceremonies like this for the departments of political science, history, economics, sociology, and many more. We also owe a great deal to countless language instructors, as well as faculty at overseas campuses. These links across disciplines and around the world are what gives International Relations program its vitality and diversity. Now, this is a celebratory day, made even more so by the fact that we're able to celebrate not just the class of 2022, but also some members of the class of 2020 and 2021 whose in-person ceremonies were canceled due to the pandemic. So we get to say both farewell and welcome back. That's very exciting. But even as this is a celebratory occasion, I feel we need to acknowledge that it marks the end of a difficult year. We returned to campus, but the pandemic wasn't through with us, and everyone has felt its effects in one way or another, either through illness, the loss of friends and family, or disruptions to classes and activities. Meanwhile, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has touched many members of our community and been a sober reminder that the horrors of war have not been banished to history as much as we'd like to believe otherwise. Closer to home, we deeply felt the loss of one of our own, Katie Meyer, an IR major of the class of 2022. Katie was a vibrant presence and a friend to many, and she is sorely missed here today. Katie has been granted a posthumous degree in international relations, and a diploma has been sent to her parents, who are also in our thoughts today. All of this amplifies how grateful we are to be together on this occasion, and it also underscores how impressive the accomplishments of these graduates have been. So let me say a few things about the class of 2022. We have 69 majors and 9 minors in this class. They are themselves an international group coming from 11 different countries. And after a hiatus of a few years, our students are back doing overseas studies. And this class has done overseas experiences on every continent except Antarctica. 16 are receiving honors for doing a thesis in either international relations or an interdisciplinary honors program. 2 of them received a Firestone Medal, which is a university award recognizing excellence in honors research. Their theses covered a variety of pressing topics, ranging from attitudes towards immigrants and the rights of refugees, the use of propaganda in China, and the management of great power conflict through force and diplomacy. IR majors have also done minors in 19 other departments or programs, ranging from art history to computer science, and they are receiving coterminal master's degrees from 7 programs, including civil and environmental engineering, international policy, and sustainability science and practice. So we're very proud of all of them and their accomplishments. And you'll be hearing more about their accomplishments later as we read their bios and give them diplomas. But first, I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, our keynote speaker, we're really excited to have her, Rose Gottemoeller. Rose is the Stephen C. Hazy Lecturer at the Center for International Security and Cooperation at the Freeman Spogli Institute, and she is also a research fellow at the Hoover Institution. Before joining Stanford, Rose was the Deputy Secretary General of NATO from 2016 to 2019. She was the first woman to serve in that role. And she helped to drive forward NATO's adaptation to new security challenges in Europe and in the fight against terrorism. Prior to that, she served for nearly 5 years as the Undersecretary for Arms Control and International Security at the US State Department, where she advised the Secretary of State on arms control, non-proliferation, and political military affairs. While Assistant Secretary of State for Arms Control Verification and Compliance in 2009 and 2010, she was the chief US negotiator of the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or New START Treaty, with the Russian Federation. At Stanford, we're really lucky that Rose is a very active teacher and mentor of our students. She teaches in the Ford Dorsey Masters in International Policy program, also in the CSAC Honors program, which a number of our graduates participated in. She also contributes in a variety of ways to conversations on campus about nuclear security and non-proliferation, US-Russia relations, and the NATO alliance. So we're really lucky to have her at Stanford, and I can think of no better person to speak at this commencement at this moment in history. So, Rose.
Thank you so much, Ken. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all today, and doesn't that breeze feel good? You know, I was so honored to have this invitation to speak to you all today, but before I say another word, I just want to say what a beautiful sight. It is so wonderful to see all the families gathered here today, and I actually wanted to address myself to you to begin with, to you parents, to you grandparents, and to all the other friends and family members who have been so important to the raising up of these young people. Thank you. They are the most amazing students whom I have ever encountered in my checkered career. They are simply amazing. Every day I am daunted by their smarts, the tough questions they ask, their search for knowledge. Teaching them is fun because they never stop asking questions. They never stop challenging themselves. We have been going through a rough period on this earth. Ken has already referred to it. The COVID-19 pandemic, the acceleration of climate change, this terrible war in Ukraine, the looming economic crisis and the looming food crisis that goes along with it. But I am comforted by the caliber of your children and how they are going out in the world resolved to tackle these problems. They can do it. Of that, I am certain. Now, let me turn to you, the students, the classes of 2020, 2021, and 2022. Wow, you are amazing. I meant what I said a moment ago. I've really been daunted by your smarts. But at the same time, I'm greatly impressed about how you never choose the easy path. And you who have been out in the world already can probably reflect on that quite from your own experience. You're always looking for ways to learn and do. You are leaving this beautiful farm with the best possible preparation for finding your way in life. You might not hit the right path immediately. You might end up in a few dead ends. You might even wander in the wilderness for a while, deciding what you really like to do. I'm confident, however, that you have the savvy and the curiosity and the will to find your way. Gathering my thoughts to speak today, I thought about the rough period, and there goes my speech. No, I'm almost finished with that page. Don't worry about it, Kai. I thought about the rough period before us. Doesn't that breeze feel good? So, you know, first of all, we have to deal with these crises that are looming. And I've been wondering what you're thinking about them. Does it have to do more with being afraid or with being exhilarated? Some nights I'm afraid, like when I lie in bed awake and think about the nuclear saber rattling that Vladimir Putin has been undertaking. And some days I'm exhilarated when I think about the way NATO has come together and has really put forward strong resistance, helping the Ukrainians to fight this terrible invasion. And I'm exhilarated to see 2 new members of NATO in Stockholm, Sweden, and Helsinki, Finland, asking, and I hope soon, to join the alliance. That's not what Vladimir Putin had in mind when he started on his adventure, but it's 180 degrees different, and I welcome that very much. Mostly, however, I don't know what to make of it. My friend Anna Vasilyeva compared this needless war in Ukraine to a wild luge ride. We are hurtling downhill at a breakneck speed. We don't know whether we're going to crash and burn or come to a safe stop. I don't know, but somebody is going to have to figure out what's next. So here, I'd like to quote the writer Paula Houston, who put it very well when she said, "After a crisis, there is no going back. After a crisis, everything is made new." If everything is being made new in these crises, then that is territory for you. That is territory for you. You are the ones who can figure out the fixes, the solutions to climate change and pandemic disease and murderous tyrants who start needless wars. I have had my try, and I am proud of some of my accomplishments, especially the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which continues to ensure that we know what the Russians are up to with their nuclear weapon systems, how they are deployed during this Ukraine crisis. Despite Putin's nuclear saber-rattling, President Biden has been able to say that we have not seen any rise in the operational readiness of the strategic nuclear forces of the Russian Federation. This is partially because the Russians tell us every day, thanks to the New START Treaty, what they are doing with their forces. They are notifying us if they are moving those weapon systems. Of course, we do the same. Everything is reciprocal, but it has contributed to predictability during this crisis. Of that, I am proud. On other things, I have to admit, I have been examining my conscience. People are asking me all the time whether it was right for us to negotiate in 1993 and 1994 to eliminate the nuclear weapons that were left in Ukraine when the Soviet Union broke apart. I have been thinking about it a lot, and on balance, I believe that we headed off an early conflict between Russia and Ukraine in the 1990s, one that might have even gone nuclear. We bought the Ukrainians 30 years of relative stability during which they claimed their sovereignty and became the strong country we see today, fighting fiercely to maintain their independence and indeed their national survival. But all of that is really beside my point. I've done my best, running the race to the end, as St. Paul used to say. Maybe I will come up with a few more ideas, but if everything is going to be made new, then it will be more your territory. And I'm quite sure I won't be able to keep up with you. That's not to say I don't have advice to offer, and I'm going to offer 3 of my favorite pieces of it right now. The first comes from one of our least regarded presidents, Calvin Coolidge. He said, "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." Pretty good coming from Calvin Coolidge, wouldn't you say? No, I don't foresee any of this group becoming educated derelicts, but remember the power of persistence when you're getting knocked around by life, and you will be knocked around by life. It's come in very handy remembering that in my own life. The second piece of advice came from Ambassador Linton Brooks. He was the chief negotiator of the first Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, and in 1990 and 1991, I worked for him as a very young and green member of his delegation. Linton once told me when we were pulling all-nighters during the negotiations that, and I quote, "a shower is worth 4 hours of sleep." Think about it. I mean, you've probably already noticed this effect yourselves during exam week, right? But just don't take the advice of a friend of mine who's a real joker and said, okay, if you take 2 showers, one right after another, then you'll get a full 8 hours. It doesn't quite work that way. My third piece of advice comes from Dr. Joseph Coates, who was my professor in graduate school. I put up my hand in class one night and he called on me, And I said, well, I don't really know much about this subject, but, and Joe Coates said to me, stop right there. Never apologize for your ideas. Just put them out there and let them be debated. And that was a wonderful piece of advice. Again, I don't know about you ladies, but in my 20s, I often had the problem of apologizing too much for what I had to say. So just remember, it's come in handy for me, just remember too, and that goes for all of you, ladies and guys alike, never apologize for your ideas. Just get them out on the table. You can command the debate that way. And then if they turn out not to be so hot, you'll find out about it. As I wrap up, I want to say to all of you how grateful I am to you for the learning experiences you've given me. I have loved hearing your questions and comments in class. I've loved our individual advising sessions. I've loved listening to your final capstone and project presentations. And I have loved learning about your ambitions and job searches and helping out whenever I can. You have really given me so much. I'm profoundly grateful to you, the International Relations classes of 2020, 2021, and 2022 here at Stanford University. I wish you good luck and Godspeed. To you parents and families, once again, how lucky you are to have raised these brilliant young people. They will take everything made new by crisis and turn it to the benefit of all. Thank you for your persistence in raising them. They are spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those wonderful comments. So next, we're lucky to have two student speakers from the class of 2022. Our first speaker is Lily Liu. She's going to come up. Lily learned Chinese and French, minored in economics, and is pursuing a coterminal master's in sustainability science and practice. She graduated with IR honors, won the award for excellence in honors thesis presentation, and received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was a founder and president of the DEI branch of the Society of International Affairs at Stanford, music director of Stanford Harmonics, and a staff member at the Bridge Pier Counseling Center. After graduation, Lily plans to advise philanthropies and nonprofits in education and environmental fields as a social sector consultant. Lily.
I'm a little nervous, but the weather is beautiful, so I hope you're enjoying it. So, what was it like to major in international relations at Stanford? A wide-eyed freshman asked me during Admit weekend. So, for me, it was Sienna and me quizzing each other in the Green Library and ranting about the 30 papers we had to memorize for the Poli-Sci 101 final. People know. It was being able to take classes from sociology, feminist gender studies, education, and so many cool departments. It was running around campus interviewing RFs for my data surveillance policy memo. It was also enjoying spoonfuls of leftover salt and straw ice cream with Natalie in the IR lounge as we commiserated over our impending thesis deadlines, or critiquing US presidential candidates' foreign policy responses with June in our tiny apartment in DC. Some of you might relate, but I know our IR journeys can be quite different, thanks to the interdisciplinary nature of this department. You may have had transformative discoveries during your study abroad experience, deepened your understanding of our region in the world, or grown a passion for sustainability. Despite our fond memories and diverse interests, being an IR major isn't always easy. I remember feeling tongue-tied whenever people ask, "What do you want to do with your major?" Or feeling insecure in a room full of finance bros and Google engineers. I remember feeling the despair of not being able to visit my ailing grandfather who lives in China due to the global pandemic, or the debilitating pessimism in face of the invasion of Ukraine and the rampant wildfires in California. Many of us struggled with grief during these past 4 years, and as the youngest person in the room many times, we could feel powerless, unable to change the tide. Acknowledging my struggles were difficult, especially on a busy campus full of high achievers. But you, my classmates, made me feel less alone. Seeing Justin's passion for reducing anti-immigrant sentiments, Taehua's interest in peacekeeping in the Asia Pacific, and Emma's commitment to reducing climate-based violence made me reassured that my interest in refugee rights and data governance are also meaningful. A warm hello from our program staff, Stephen, or encouraging texts from Sharon and my IR honors classmates made me feel less scared to face the uncertainties in my own life. I hope that many of you have found those moments of hope, and I'm thankful for every single mentor sitting here today or away, family members and friends who inspired us and supported us to be here today. As we relish our growth and resilience during today's scheduled reflection, I am scared to ask the real question. What is it like to be a graduate of international relations? Some people sitting over there already knows, but from what I've heard, some of us will become diplomats, politicians, policy advisors, professors, journalists, while others can dabble in business or even creative pursuits. We might be the go-to person to give the international perspective in key discussions. With Stanford's shiny stamp of approval, we could feel lightheaded, dangerously complacent in our expertise. This complacency scares me because in a complex and fast-changing world, one-sided stories can misrepresent communities, or even worse, lead to ill-informed decisions. Just because I took some classes on refugee health does not mean that I know the stories and the complexity of refugees face in the healthcare system. Way too often, world leaders fail to listen to the very people whom their decisions impact. And as we step into positions of powers in the future, I hope that we remember to say, I don't know, more often. It may feel embarrassing at first, but it is okay and sometimes very necessary because humility allows us to seek more informed answers and make better decisions. As Confucius said, and I promised my parents over there that I will use a Confucius quote in this speech, 大智若愚. The greatest wisdom is to stay foolish. I hope we listen to the lived experts living around us and continue to stay foolish and curious beyond our education. Today, we become IR graduates, but our journey has simply begun. Like Emma was saying in her speech, we can be the spark for change. We can use our negotiation skills to advocate for the inclusion of more diverse perspectives in decision rooms. We can draw on our understanding of cultural and political histories to find common grounds in conflict mediations. We can be the voice of optimism and urgency in jaded crowds and call for more collective actions. Our interest in global affairs and serving communities beyond our own inspired us to study international relations at Stanford. As we leave here today, I hope we can hold on to that spark and stay true to our passions, whether that is promoting clean energy, reducing gender-based violence, or a field that has yet to exist. I want to end my remark with the very wise words from Gabriel Wolfenstein, a beloved undergraduate advising director that many of us know. It goes, we face struggles. We can't acknowledge grief, but we are allowed to be happy. Gabriel's words resonate with me so much because we need to be happy. We need to be able to find that light and celebrate it and share it with others in moments of despair and seeming hopelessness. The world is messy. Solutions are never simple, but we can embrace this uncertainty with humility, lean on each other, and slowly make sense of life's complex and unexpected turns together. Thank you, and congratulations to the class of 2022.
Great, thank you so much for those comments. Our second speaker is Emma Smith. Emma interned in Sarajevo and in Doha, Qatar. She learned Arabic, minored in human rights, and earned interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. She graduated with distinction and received a Lloyd W. Dinkelspiel Award for Outstanding Service to Undergraduate Education, an Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and a Scoville Peace Fellowship. She was president of the Society for International Affairs at Stanford, a Children in Armed Conflict intern at the US State Department, and inaugural fellow for the Intercollegiate Civil Disagreement Partnership. As a Scoville Peace Fellow, Emma will work with an international peacebuilding organization in Washington, D.C. on integrating atrocity prevention and climate resilience into U.S. foreign policy. Emma?
Good afternoon, everyone. In October of 2019, Samantha Power, the former U.S. ambassador to the UN, came to campus. After anxiously considering and then promptly deciding not to declare my undying love for her while she sipped a latte at Coho, I watched her speak in Dinkelspiel Auditorium about her career spent writing about and then trying to prevent mass atrocities. It's a thankless job in most cases. When you do the job right, you don't have anything to show for it. You prevented conflict, after all. When you don't, you face some of the most disturbing, devastating crimes and are tasked with limiting them as much as possible. Many people would feel disillusioned by the barrage of rejection and inaction that she's faced in the wake of these atrocities. Samantha Power, though, has somehow only grown more optimistic. Guiding her optimism, she told us, is the principle that can implies ought. Can implies ought. It sounds nice, but what does that really mean? To me, this seemingly simple model suggests a useful, if idealistic, framework. That if we as individuals believe that we can make an impact on an issue that we care about, then we ought to do so. That we have both the ability and the responsibility to contribute to positive social change. What's compelling for me is that I don't think the hardest part here is actually taking the action. It's only difficult to get to the place of ought if you don't believe that you can. Essentially, if you don't think that your actions and your voice are important, it's so much harder to feel compelled to act. So the question becomes, how do you convince other people, and convince yourself, most importantly, that you can impact some of the world's most pressing and seemingly intractable challenges? Over the last 4 years here at Stanford, I've learned that perhaps the greatest roadblock to this perspective is this idea that big challenges require big solutions. Don't get me wrong, sometimes we need a Marshall Plan or a nuclear non-proliferation treaty to generate some structural change. But it's just as important to think about how the seemingly smallest of actions can have magnitudes greater impact. I know this can sound like a bit of a cliche, to be clear. So to provide a bit more texture to this truth, I asked some of our fellow IR graduates about small events that change their own life paths. Lily Leo remembers Professor Herb Lin not only inviting her to a CSAC seminar, The Art of War's Connection to Cyber Policy, but also taking the time to acknowledge her meaningful contribution in the discussion. She was a freshman, the youngest and least experienced person in the room by far. And yet she felt so empowered, valued, and inspired in that moment that she had the confidence to pursue tech policy as her discipline here at Stanford, a field that she has already begun to make waves in as she sits here waiting to graduate. Nadav Ziv has been on both sides of these cycles of impact. Nadav is a talented writer and communicator, and he has published op-eds in national media outlets throughout his time at Stanford. These opinion pieces, though, can often feel unsatisfying. How do you know that people are reading what you're putting out into the world, much less acting on it? He saw just a small part of his impact recently, when he learned that a power class, which is one of our freshman and sophomore year requirements, had assigned one of his pieces, an op-ed about the perils of misinformation, as required reading. His research in a small Stanford dorm room had made it to the New York Times and then circled all the way back to Stanford. It has inspired students to critically question their ability to discern fact from fiction and to come up with creative solutions to counter the misinformation that has plagued our political system, the impact of which we've seen all too well in the wake of the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. It's these ordinary,
seemingly everyday interactions that can be the most extraordinary in the long run. I believe deeply in this theory of change, the power of one conversation, one book, one search, document, comment, and comma, and most importantly, one person, being intentional with their time and deliberate with their mission to make far-reaching change. This should be all the evidence that we need to prove that we can have an impact on any issue and on any person. So now that we believe that we can, doing becomes the easy part. I say this with confidence because I know you all and the power that your actions, even those at the margins that seem small or insignificant at the time, have world-expanding impact. In short, by making it to this space, I am confident that nothing you ever do will be small again. There is, admittedly, a little bit of myth-making that has to happen here. We don't know the counterfactual, the world in which Lily doesn't go to the cyber seminar, or where Nadav decides to sleep in instead of writing his op-ed. So yes, maybe this whole concept of individual action relies on believing, reveling in the stories that we tell ourselves. But we tell ourselves so many stories in IR. We imagine entire dispersed communities into collective wholes. We use concepts like realism and liberalism to create a sense of order in a world of anarchy, in theory. We establish international norms as beacons of an idealistic morality. So personally, I like this story. It's a story where our better angels went out, where coffees have as much impact as copyrights, and where, in the face of atrocities and inaction and disillusionment, we see within ourselves and each other the greatest potential for a brighter future. Stories are what drive me, I should say, and there's one in particular that I always return to when I doubt this personal power. Raphael Lemkin is one of my personal heroes, fittingly discovered while reading Samantha Power's book. He coined the word genocide in the 1940s, realizing that there needed to be a word to connote something truly unique and evil, as he stood in the shadow of the Holocaust. He was best known during his time, though, for running through the halls of the brand new United Nations building, chasing diplomats with a booming cry of, "You and I, we must change the world." Now, there are so many things that I love about this sentence, that he brings others into the conversation, recognizing that his goals can't be achieved alone, that he believes in his ability to pursue change on a global scale. But what I love most is that he says that we must change the world. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Edward Everett Hale. It reads, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something that I can do." Now, we can all be Samantha Power if we want to. I'm sure of that. But we don't all have to win a Pulitzer Prize or score a seat in the White House to have an impact. What we can do, and what we will do, is to not refuse to do something that we know that we can accomplish. With that in mind, I can't wait to see which one of you will be similarly sitting 20 years from now in Coho, followed by a cohort of angsty and excitable frosh into Dink, and tell a story, your story, about how your time at Stanford helped you change the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma, for that really inspiring and insightful remarks. All right, so we've now come to the main event, which is the awarding of our diplomas. So as I pass out diplomas, here to read the names and tell you a little bit about each one of our graduates are three important members of our program. So you'll hear from Steve Stedman, Senior Fellow at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies, Gili Vardi, Lecturer in History and International Relations, and I should add, just announced recipient of a Phi Beta Kappa Teaching Award, and Robert Rakove, Lecturer in International Relations, who teaches a number of core courses in our program. Now, given the circumstances, we're not going to be doing the usual line of handshakes as we hand out diplomas. but we will have a couple of photo ops as we do this. And I've asked Rose to stand up here as well and to help me congratulate the recipients. I should add that if you open your diploma case and you find that there's no actual diploma inside, that's because you didn't finish the final assignment in my class. And no, actually, it's because Stanford is now mailing diplomas, so you're getting a diploma cover with the diploma to be received later. Okay. Steve, get us started.
Okay, class of 2020. Alexis Michelle AJ is from Bakersfield, California. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish and Arabic, served as co-president of Stanford Women in Business, and was a Cargill Global Scholar. Alexis works as a senior data analyst at Meta in New York and will attend law school in the fall. Ashley Baxter is from Wheeling, West Virginia. She studied abroad in Paris and learned French and Spanish. She served as director of Stanford Women in Business, managing director of Cardinal Ventures, and was a coxswain on the women's varsity rowing team. Ashley is a consumer investor at Stripes, a private equity firm in New York City. Emily Grace Bishko is from Atlanta, Georgia. She studied abroad in Florence and Santiago, attended Stanford in New York, and learned French, Spanish, and Italian. She graduated with distinction and IR honors and won a Firestone Medal for Excellence in Undergraduate Research. She served as an RA in Northcliffe, Adelphi, president of the Society for International Affairs at Stanford, and an IR peer advisor. Emily works for Redwood Advisors, a boutique management consulting firm, and is deciding whether to attend graduate school in the fall. Samantha Victoria Foyer is from London, United Kingdom. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish, minored in ethics and technology, and graduated with interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. She has found her IR experience valuable for enabling her to view the world through multiple lenses. Samantha is an analyst at Turn River Capital, a tech private equity firm in San Francisco. Naz Gocek is from Ankara, Turkey. She graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and interdisciplinary honors in democracy, development, and the rule of law. She was programming director for the Society of International Affairs at Stanford and interned at the European Parliament in Brussels. Naz is pursuing a master's degree in European Studies at Georgetown. Rodney Harrington is from Chicago, Illinois. He minored in French and received a Stanford Alumni Association Award of Excellence. He participated in the Student Athlete Civic Engagement Program in New Delhi, completed a venture capital internship in London, and was a member of the Stanford men's varsity basketball team. Rodney is a real estate investment analyst with Teacher Retirement System of Texas. Sean Howard is from Dallas, Texas. He studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish, and participated in Stanford Seed in Accra, Ghana. He received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence and a Black Community Services Center Certificate of Excellence. He won the Goldman Sachs Stock Pitch Competition and was assistant director for the Stanford TAPS production of A Raisin in the Sun. Sean is co-founder at fintech startup building Central Bank Digital Currencies. Madison Kenny is from Portland, Oregon. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish and Portuguese, and minored in economics. She played the piccolo in the Leland Stanford Junior University Marching Band, was a member of Stanford Women in Politics, and served as an IR peer advisor. Madison works as a program coordinator for Stanford in Washington. Lily Lee is from Rockford, Illinois. She interned in China, learned Mandarin, Cantonese, and Japanese, and double majored in psychology. She was co-chair of the Japanese Student Union and a member of the Stanford Dragon Boat team. Lily is a resident services coordinator at Chinatown Community Development Center in San Francisco and looking to change jobs. So take note, you can meet with her afterwards. Andrew Loke is from Fairfax, Virginia. He studied abroad in Paris, double majored in French, and graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. He received the J.E. Wallace Sterling Award for Scholastic Achievement, Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and Hester and Franklin Prize for French Writing. He interned in Paris and Washington, D.C., and served as an IR peer advisor. Andrew works for an independent policy research firm in Washington, D.C. Marissa Allegra Martinez is from Danville, California. She studied abroad in Madrid, participated in Stanford in New York, and learned Spanish. She interned with the Contra Costa County Office of the Public Defender and was a founding member of Alpha Chi Omega. Marissa is a finance supervisor at McMaster Carr. Meg McNulty is from Chicago, Illinois. She studied abroad in Florence and Madrid, earned a Spanish proficiency notation and learned Italian, and minored in psychology. She was program assistant for Stanford Arts Intensive in New York City, interned on a Stanford and Government Fellowship in Buenos Aires, and earned a Cardinal Service notation. She was research assistant for the Political Psychology Research Group and taught and performed in the Stanford dance community. Meg is a senior analyst at American Express. Brian Metzger is from Albuquerque, New Mexico. He studied abroad in Oxford, learned Arabic, and minored in Middle Eastern languages, literatures, and cultures. He graduated with interdisciplinary honors in international security studies and received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence. He interned at the NATO Strategic Communications Center of Excellence in Latvia. Brian is a politics reporter for Insider. Brent Hayes. Brent's not here. Thank you. Avery Bryn Pierce is from Greenwich, Connecticut. She studied abroad in Cape Town, learned French, graduated with distinction, and received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was vice chair of strategic planning for Stanford and Government and president of Stanford Club Water Polo. Avery is director of partnerships at the podcast platform Callin. Natalie Christina Ponce is from Miami, Florida. She studied abroad in Florence and Madrid, learned Italian and Spanish, and double majored in Italian. She graduated with distinction and Phi Beta Kappa, served as co-president of Stanford Women in Law, and was a member of the Italian Honor Society. Natalie is a legal assistant at Cobra & Kim in Miami. Jordana Rice is from Larchmont, New York. She studied abroad in Cape Town, learned French, and double majored in art practice. She interned in Cape Town and was team captain on the women's lightweight rowing team. Jordana is attending Tulane Law School. Roll away. Sydney Rickoff is from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish and German, and was CFO for Governor's Corner Dining Societies. Sydney is CEO of Almost Famous Popcorn Company. David Rosenzweig is from Mineola, New York. He studied abroad in Australia, interned with Stanford Seed in Kenya, learned Kiswahili, and participated in the Stanford Africa Entrepreneurship Network. David is working for AGI, a West Africa-focused private equity firm. Erica Scott is from Miami, Florida. She learned Arabic, Spanish, and French, and double minored in economics and modern languages. She graduated with distinction and IR honors and received the IR Honors Program Thesis Prize and Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She won a Marshall Scholarship was awarded the Condoleezza Rice Prize by the Stanford Black Community Service Center, and served as president of the Associated Students of Stanford University. Erica is completing a master's degree at King's College London as a Marshall Scholar. Timothy Ryan Sherlock is from Lloyd Harbor, New York. He studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish, and double minored in music and theater and performance studies. He interned in the office of Condoleezza Rice and received a Stanford Friends of Music scholarship. Studying IR constantly dropped him into new content areas, from environmental law and diplomatic case studies to contemporary Spanish economics, teaching him to focus on the scale of the unknown, but on organizing and contextualizing a wide range of perspectives. This skill has endowed him with a thirst for exploration and the confidence that he will find his way. Timothy is a consultant at Oliver Wyman in San Francisco. Nathaniel Jediah Stewart is from Allentown, Pennsylvania. He studied abroad in Cairo, learned Arabic and Biblical Greek, minored in Middle Eastern languages, literatures, and cultures, interned at the White House, and completed a coterminal master's in communication. He received the Alumni Association Award of Excellence and the Stanford Black Community Services Center Dean's Award for Academic Excellence. Nathaniel is the campaign manager for a congressional candidate on Chicago's South Side. Maili Yi is from Honolulu, Hawaii. She studied abroad in Taiwan, learned Chinese and Hawaiian, and graduated with IR honors. She was the inaugural recipient of the Stanford Asia Pacific Research Center Diversity Grant and completed a coterminal master's in East Asian Studies. Her IR experience taught her how to engage in respectful dialogue and effective research to form opinions on contemporary issues. The skills she developed and support she felt during her time in the IR program have given her the confidence to ask for help and seek meaningful mentorships in a professional setting. Maili is a consultant with Deloitte in San Diego. Congratulations, the class of 2020.
Claudia's not here, sorry. And now for the class of 2021. Catherine Rose Churchill is from Somerville, Massachusetts. She studied abroad in Santiago and double majored with honors in Spanish. As an immigration paralegal, she has found her IR experience incredibly valuable for giving her a foundational understanding of Latin America and U.S. relations with that part of the world. She also found her study abroad experience formative for strengthening her ability to adapt to new and difficult situations. As an AmeriCorps Legal Advocates member, Catherine works in immigration law for Catholic Social Services of Fall River, Massachusetts. Michael Espinosa is from New York City. He specialized in environment, energy, and natural resources, studied abroad in Santiago, learned Spanish, and minored in urban studies. Michael worked as audience engagement editor for the Stanford Daily and is currently social media manager for Do Not Peak Entertainment. Hei Jun Lee is from Sunnyvale, California. She studied abroad at Oxford, learned Korean, and minored in computer science. She graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, interdisciplinary honors in international security studies, and a cardinal service notation. She was Deputy Secretary General for the Stanford Model UN Conference and a peer advisor for the IR program and BOSP Oxford. The research skills and breadth of academic interests she gained through IR courses and the CSAC program helped her to pursue research projects on a variety of cyber and tech policy issues. The mentors she met continue to serve as important role models and are some of the first people she turns to for advice. June works at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Jordan Oakes is from Seattle, Washington. She specialized in comparative international governance, studied abroad in London, learned French and Spanish, and minored in data science. She was a member of the Stanford varsity track and cross-country teams, senior class president, and public relations chair of the Stanford African Students Association. Jordan is an associate at Boston Consulting Group in Seattle. Laura Pelaez is from San Diego, California. She specialized in comparative international governance, was a volunteer with Code for Palestine, learned Spanish, and minored in human rights. She served in the Haas Center's High School Support Initiative and received a Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. Laura is interning with the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office. That completes the class of 2021. Let's have a round of applause for them. And now another for the class of 2022. Natalie Adams Menendez is from Lawrence, Kansas. She learned French and Italian, studied abroad in Florence, Accra, Ghana, and London, and minored in human rights and French. She graduated with distinction and IR honors and received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She participated in Summer Research College twice, served as president of RITMO to Stanford and HOPLA to Stanford, and was an LGBTQ Victory Institute congressional intern. This summer, Natalie will work in Congress, conduct research on the domestic LGBTQ rights movement, and study abroad in Accra. Next year, she will work in Washington, D.C. with the U.S. House Democratic Caucus under Chairman Hakeem Jeffries, and thereafter return to Stanford to pursue a master's in sociology. Ana Laura Amezquita Calam is from Whittier, California. She studied Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, and Mandarin, and won the Lunsford Prize for Oral Presentation of Research. She was a summer boost tutor with Stanford's Language to Literacy Lab and a Hume Center Oral Communications tutor, and she interned for the Breakthrough Collaborative as a 9th grade teacher to prepare high-achieving students from under-resourced schools for college. Most memorable was her advanced Spanish service learning course on migration and asylum, which helped her become an advocate for immigrant refugees. Ana Laura will teach high school for 2 years with Teach for America, and then plans to earn a master's degree in education. Rathi Anandu is from Houston, Texas. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish, French, and Portuguese, minored in Spanish and creative writing, and was a contributing writer at the Stanford Daily. She graduated with distinction and Phi Beta Kappa. Most memorable was her study abroad experience when she traveled all over Spain, lived with a host family, memorized the names of artworks at the Prado Museum, and learned flamenco. Rathi will work as a consultant at KPMG in Los Angeles. Michelle Bao is from Ellicott City, Maryland. She interned in Shanghai, studied Mandarin, and minored in economics. She was founder of the Stanford Figure Skating Club and a campus ambassador for Girls Who Invest. Her most memorable experience was founding and leading the Stanford Figure Skating Club to intercollegiate competitions at the national level. Michelle will join the Goldman Sachs Asset Management Division in New York City and plans eventually to work in Asia. Clarissa Barquist is from Orlando, Florida. She studied abroad in Oxford, learned Spanish, completed internships in venture capital, sustainable investments, and e-commerce, and minored in economics. Clarissa was president of Kappa Kappa Gamma and won a Kappa-funded National Merit Scholarship. She will work at General Atlantic in New York. Brooke Beyer is from London and Singapore. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish, and minored in human rights. She received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence, graduated with IR Honors, and received the IR Honors Program Thesis Prize. She was president of Stanford Women in Law, a writer and editor at the Stanford Daily, and an IR program peer advisor. The highlight of her Stanford career was studying abroad in Madrid, while her most cherished intellectual experiences derived from her involvement with the IR program and Human Rights Center. Brooke plans to work at the State Department or an international organization and eventually to attend law school. Hannah Blum is from Reno, Nevada. She studied abroad in Florence and St. Petersburg, interned with the State Department, and learned Russian, Arabic, and Italian. She was an editor with the Stanford Daily and member of the archery team. Most memorable for her was stepping off the plane in St. Petersburg in the summer of her freshman year. This was her first time out of the country. Hannah will serve in the State Department and plans to join the Foreign Service, hopefully in Eastern Europe. Brianna Bolaños is from Olive Branch, Missouri, She learned Spanish and double majored in feminism, gender, and sexuality studies. She was vice president of Lambda Theta Nu sorority and a researcher for the Feminist Gender and Sexuality Studies program and the School of Humanities and Sciences. She remembers most joining Lambda Theta Nu and being surrounded by confident and powerful Latin women and women-aligning folk. Brianna will pursue a master's degree in Latin American Studies at Columbia or Georgetown. Justin Casimir Brown is from Berlin. He studied abroad in Berlin and Oxford, learned Arabic, participated in summer research college, and minored in political science and computer science. He was a Davis United World College scholar, graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and IR honors, and received the Firestone Medal for Excellence in undergraduate research. He was an editor for the Stanford Sphere and student ambassador for BOSP Berlin. Most memorable was his Oxford tutorial on the key challenges facing the European Union. Justin Casimir will work as an investigative journalist with Lighthouse Reports and become involved with humanitarian work amid the unfolding refugee crises along the EU's external borders. Jonathan Bridges is from Huntsville, Tennessee. He studied abroad in Paris, learned French, and won a Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America Leadership Award. He was a class president and Stanford Sierra Camp counselor for 3 summers. Most memorable was dinner with amazing friends overlooking the Seine and Eiffel Tower on the last night in Paris after the most perfect, adventurous, and exciting 3-month study abroad experience. Jonathan will work as program manager and analyst on the global financial services team at Amazon Web Services in New York City. Sumsiri Kambu Bryant is from Hopkinton, New Hampshire. She studied abroad in Cape Town, learned Spanish, and participated in summer research college and double majored in feminist, gender, and sexuality studies. She was a research assistant for Professor Soledad Prilliman and an anti-trafficking volunteer with the 3 Strands Global Foundation and Bay Area Anti-Trafficking Coalition. Most memorable was working for Professor Prilliman full-time for 2 summers and part-time during the academic year. Sumsiri plans to work for a while in the nonprofit sector and return to school to pursue a research-focused career. Sharon Du is from Melbourne, Australia. She learned Mandarin, participated in summer research college, and minored in English. She graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and IR honors, and received the IR Honors Program Thesis Prize. She was a Stanford Hoover Fellow, a Humanities Research Fellow, and managing editor of opinions at the Stanford Daily. Most memorable was working on her IR honors thesis, particularly the warmth and support she received from professors Jennifer Pan, Vicky Foca, and David Layton. Sharon will work for 1 year as a James C. Gaither Jr. Fellow in the Asia program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and then attend Yale Law School. Alex Durham is from Atlanta, Georgia. He studied abroad in Brussels, learned Spanish and Latin, double majored in classics, and graduated with IR honors. He was president of Stanford Flipside and a staff writer at the Stanford Daily. His most memorable experience was living in enchanted broccoli forest, where he had the opportunity to cook, bake, care for the space, and meet incredible people. Alex plans to work in foreign policy and live abroad in Europe, and eventually might attend law school. Sarah Egan is from Chevy Chase, Maryland. She studied abroad in Latvia, learned Arabic, and earned a Bachelor of Arts in Science with Mathematical and Computational Science. She was a Hacking for Defense TA, a Gordian Knot Center Defense Innovation Scholar, and played club rugby. Most memorable was taking Hacking for Defense, which allowed her to interview White House cabinet members, national security advisors, and generals. Sarah will work as a software engineer for Microsoft in Seattle. Juan Feo Gomez is from Houston, Texas. He studied abroad in Paris, learned French and Italian, won the Hester Franklin Prize for Best Second-Year French Paper, and was admitted to the French Honor Society. He was financial officer and coffee chats director for Stanford Speakers Bureau, research assistant for professors Jamal Abusha and Foka, and staff writer for the Stanford Daily. Most memorable was studying abroad in Paris, where he was pushed beyond his comfort zone to understand other ways of learning. Joanne will pursue a master's in international governments and diplomacy with a concentration in human rights at Sciences Po Paris School of International Affairs. Maya Guzdar is from Piedmont, California. She studied abroad in Shanghai, interned at the U.S. Department of Defense, learned Mandarin, and minored in human rights. She graduated with distinction and was a senior class president and campus tour guide. Most memorable was biking with her roommate every morning, freshman year, to her 9 a.m. class, and when passing through the main quad yelling, "We're blessed to be here." Maya has received a Schwarzman Scholarship and will spend next year earning a Master's in Global Affairs at Tsinghua University in Beijing. Iris Rahima Haque is from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. She studied abroad in Oxford and Florence, interned in Tokyo, learned Japanese, and minored in poverty, inequality, and policy. She was a Challah for Hunger volunteer, a 5 on Foot staff member, and an actor with the Just Art Stanford Artist Active Collective. She remembers most late-night fountain hopping with friends, a classic Stanford activity. Iris will be completing a co-terminal master's degree in sociology and then plans to attend law school and work as a public interest lawyer in California. Taehua Hwang is from Seoul, South Korea. He learned Chinese, graduated Phi Beta Kappa, and was the winner of the 8th Annual Korea Program Prize for Writing in Korean Studies. He was an Institute for National Security Studies Israel-China Program Research Intern, an East-West Institute intern, and a Freeman Spogli Institute research assistant. Most memorable was taking Introduction to International Relations in freshman fall with a few dozen other dorm friends. Taehua will pursue a MPhil in International Relations at Cambridge University. Julie Topping Horton is from San Francisco, California. She studied abroad in Australia, learned Spanish, was a member of the Stanford Social Entrepreneurship Student Association, and played in 2 campus bands. She remembers most excursions with friends off campus and into nature, beach camping in Santa Cruz, climbing in Yosemite, skiing in Tahoe, and monitoring the Tomcat Ranch Fire. Julie will complete her co-terminal master's in civil and environmental engineering while pursuing work in carbon drawdown and financing ecosystem services. Alexander Binjiang Hao is from Short Hills, New Jersey. He learned French and Chinese, interned in Hong Kong and Washington, D.C., and was a financial officer for the Stanford Acts Committee and president of Stanford Forest. Most memorable was his first big game because the experience cemented his passion for Stanford athletics and fired up his Cardinal spirit. Alex will work in the data science division of Light Street Capital in San Francisco and consider attending business school. Noah Howard is from Washington, D.C.
No, it's not here. Yep.
Deborah Jantz moved around a lot as a military kid. She studied French and Russian, minored in French, and was awarded membership in the French National Honor Society. She graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and interdisciplinary honors in international security studies, and received the Firestone Medal for Excellence in Undergraduate Research and the Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was president and worship leader of the Chi Alpha Christian Fellowship, a research assistant for Professor Scott Sagan, and a campus tour guide. She remembers most the deep fellowships and amazing support, laughter, and growth she found in the Chi Alpha community. Deborah will be a data scientist in the Strategic Innovations Group at Booz Allen Hamilton in Washington, D.C. Katie Johnson is from London, England. She studied abroad in Beirut, learned Arabic and Spanish, minored in psychology, and was a research assistant at the Stanford Internet Observatory. Most memorable was being deeply challenged by her peers and professors, helping her to develop a love of learning and intellectual humility. Katie plans to pursue a career in public service. Kai Yoshikato is from Palos Verdes, California. He learned Chinese and Japanese, minored in computer science, and earned interdisciplinary honors in international security studies, and received the William J. Perry Prize for Excellence in Policy-Relevant Research. He interned at the State Department's Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs, was president of the Stanford-Japan Exchange Conference, and captain of the Stanford Model UN team. Most memorable was participating in the CSAC Honors Program, spending time with his wonderful cohort, and learning from the many distinguished people he met. Kai will work at the Taiwan Institute of International Research this summer and study abroad in Tokyo this fall. Yeah. Maya Christine Kegley is from Kearney, Nebraska. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish, and minored in Spanish and feminist gender and sexuality studies. She was awarded an Alumni Association Award of Excellence and inducted into the National Collegiate Hispanic Honor Society. She was a fellow with the Landesca Center for Women's Land Rights, recruitment chair for Chi Omega, and event coordinator for the IR program. Most memorable was visiting historical sites in Madrid and seeing the influence of different empires and kingdoms over thousands of years. Maya plans to pursue a career in sustainable development.
All right, last ones are amazing, I promise. As amazing. Caroline, can you hear me? Caroline Keyes is from Austin, Texas. She studied abroad in Madrid, learned Spanish and Italian, and minored in Spanish and psychology. She was a member of the National Collegiate Hispanic Honor Society, president of Development Solutions Organization, and financial officer of Stanford Speakers Bureau. Most memorable was living in the same Barcelona Airbnb with her entire Madrid cohort during the first weekend abroad, because that was when they bonded and had to rely on each other to get by. Caroline will work as a manager consultant for Oliver Wyman in San Francisco. Sierra Moon Lutzen is from Rosemount, Minnesota. She learned Russian and was a member of the Stanford Rugby Club, the Stanford American Indian Organization, and the Stanford Powwow. Sierra will apply to law school to study federal Indian law and tribal law, and eventually serve Native American communities in her home state of Minnesota. Alexandra Code is from Seattle, Washington. She studied abroad in Oxford, learned German, and minored in human rights. She graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and interdisciplinary honors in international security studies, won the John Holland Slusser World Peace Prize, and received Human Rights and Halper International Public Service Fellowship. She was a legal defense intern with the International Criminal Court in The Hague and forum editor of the Stanford International Policy Review. Most memorable was taking and then TAing the intensive 3-week field course Face of Battle, which connected her with mentors and deepened her passion for national security and human rights. Alexandra will work at Public International Law and Policy Group, a global pro bono law firm based in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Faith Coe is from Los Alamos, New Mexico. She studied away at Oxford and Stanford in Washington. Learned Chinese and Spanish, was a U.S. presidential scholar, and received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was a member of Stanford Cheer, Chi Alpha, and Los Salceros de Stanford. Most memorable was leading Stanford pre-orientation trips, during which she watched sunrises and listened to life stories together with new friends. Faith plans to love the world, move to France, teach, dance, learn about God, go to law school, become a mom, and an ambassador. Hannah Kohatsu is from Asheville, North Carolina. She studied abroad in Taiwan, learned Chinese, Arabic, and Japanese, and received a Boren Scholarship. She graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. She was a research assistant at the Freeman Spogli Institute and played on the Stanford women's rugby team. Most memorable were the many little moments with Chi Alpha, the rugby team, and CSAC, where she met the people who, in barely 3 years, have become lifelong friends. Hannah plans to pursue a career in public service and diplomacy. Aline Marie Kalte is from Stuttgart, Germany. She learned Spanish, played varsity women's golf, and was an MVP and All-American twice. Most memorable was working closely with her major advisor, Dr. Condoleezza Rice. Aline plans to play golf professionally. Julie Onji Kawak is from South Bend, Indiana. She studied away in Cape Town and Stanford in Washington, learned Korean, Spanish, and Japanese, and minored in data science. She played ultimate frisbee and was a member of Stanford Ceramics. Julia will work in the Management Development Program at McMaster Carr in Los Angeles. Famira Lafortune is from Port St. Lucie, Florida. She learned Kurdish and French and received a John Gardner Public Service Fellowship and an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was a Bill and Melinda Gates Scholar, Haas Community-Based Research and Global Service Fellow, and was principal investigator of anti-Black racism in ICE detention centers with Freedom for Immigrants. Most memorable was her experience working for Freedom for Immigrants, as it sparked her interest in immigration advocacy work. Famira will work in health policy as a Gardner Fellow in Washington, D.C., and thereafter pursue medicine. Tavion Lee is from Newport Beach, California. He studied abroad in Paris, learned French and Japanese, and minored in French and history. He played on the varsity football team and made the Pac-12 Student Athlete Academic Honor Roll. Most memorable was declaring the IR major and realizing his academic goals. Tavion will pursue a master's degree in international security. Jason Ren Juen Lee is from Kuantan, Malaysia. He learned Japanese, minored in computer science and East Asian studies, participated in summer research college, and was a member of the Stanford Debate Society. Most memorable was experiencing the diversity of classes, from Second World War military strategy, that's my class, to anime and modern Japanese literature. Jason will join the Boston Consulting Group in Kuala Lumpur. Daria Tabia Lenz is from Altadena, California. She learned German, minored in human rights, and graduated with distinction. She was a member of the Stanford varsity women's swimming and diving teams and served as an IR peer advisor. Most memorable was the feeling of always being surrounded by students and faculty so passionate about learning and invested in their personal growth. Daria will work for 2 years as a financial analyst and see where that takes her. Demang Lily Liu is from Beijing and Boston. She learned Chinese and French, minored in economics, and graduated with IR honors. She received the Award for Excellence in Honors Thesis Presentation and Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was founder and president of DEI branch of Society for International Affairs at Stanford and music director of Stanford Harmonics. Most memorable was performing her story at Faces and interviewing refugees for her IR honors thesis, as these experiences allowed her to grow and embrace her identity and dreams with passion. Lily is pursuing a co-terminal master's in sustainability science and practice, and thereafter will advise philanthropies and nonprofits in the education and environment fields. Natalie Longmire-Coulis is from Santa Fe, New Mexico. She learned French and Spanish, minored in human rights, graduated with distinction and Phi Beta Kappa, and received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was a Coca-Cola scholar, president of Women and Youth Supporting Each Other, and a senior class cabinet representative. Most memorable was riding her bike to class daily through the main quad rush hour, as this sometimes terrifying but always inspiring experience made her aware of how lucky she was to be among so many incredible people committed to learning and growing. Natalie plans to attend law school and become an international human rights attorney. Avery Winthrop McCall is from Chicago, Illinois. She studied abroad in Paris, learned French, was a Mayfield Fellow, and graduated with distinction. She mentored resettled refugees with Refugee One and played varsity squash. Most memorable Most
not to yell, but good job.
Good job. Okay. Most memorable was when Dr. Condoleezza Rice joined her 12-student seminar for an off-the-record discussion, as it was incredible to hear about the nuances, challenges, and complexities of doing international relations at the highest level. Avery plans to work at the intersection of business, entrepreneurship, and human rights. Kevia McComb is from New York, New York. She studied abroad in Hong Kong and learned Chinese and Spanish. She was managing director of Stanford Consulting, vice president of Stanford Women in Business, and volunteered with women and youth supporting each other. Most memorable was the very first class she attended at Stanford, an introductory seminar on global wealth inequality that wholly changed her worldview and sparked her interest in international development. Kevia will work in management consulting in New York City and plans to pursue a joint business and law degree. Caitlin Chateau-Maylor is from Grass Valley, California. She learned Spanish, was president of Stanford Natives in Pre-Law, undergraduate chair of Stanford Technology Law Review, and a research assistant at Stanford Law School. Caitlin will attend Stanford Law School. Felicia Louise Moore is from Lincoln, Nebraska. She studied abroad in Cape Town and learned Spanish and Arabic. She was a U.S. State Department Foreign Service intern, a member of the First Generation and/or Low Income Partnership, and a Ravenswood Reads English tutor. Most memorable was exploring Cape Town with her best friends during study abroad. They saw the most beautiful beaches and mountains while engaging with peers, class materials, and professors. Felicia plans to pursue a career in international or human rights law. Olivia Morello is from Atlantic Beach, Florida. She learned Chinese and Spanish and graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, in interdisciplinary honors in international security studies. She received a J.E. Wallace Sterling Award for Scholastic Achievement, the Hoover Prize for Excellence in Undergraduate Writing, a Stanford Law School Constitutional Law Fellowship, and a National Security Innovation Network X-Force Fellowship. Most memorable was representing different generals, sharing the perspective of students' different roles, and learning from each other's analysis during the mock staff ride in Dr. Gilivari's course, that's me, The Modern Battle. Olivia will attend Stanford's Law School. That's not. Okay. Alexander Nilsson is from Bendigo, Australia. He learned French, minored in classics, and graduated with distinction and Phi Beta Kappa. He was a member of the Stanford Debate Society and worked as a software architect at the envirotech startup WildNote. Most memorable was traveling throughout the U.S. for Stanford Debate Society tournaments and developing close friendships with teammates. Alexander will work as an associate consultant with Bain & Company in San Francisco. Rachel Ochoa is from Los Angeles, California. She learned Spanish and French, minored in philosophy, received a Gates Scholarship, and was a leadership enterprise for a diverse America scholar. She was vice president of Cardinal Venture and a researcher for the King Center on Global Development. Rachel plans to study abroad in Paris this fall and thereafter pursue a law career. Nicole Pofter is from Wilmette, Illinois. She learned Spanish, minored in Earth Systems, graduated with distinction and Phi Beta Kappa, and received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was coxswain on the women's varsity rowing team, Pac-12 Student Athlete of the Year, Pocock All-American First Team, Pac-12 Student Athlete Academic Honor Roll, and Collegiate Rowing Coaches Association Scholar Athlete. She was a tour guide at the Stanford Visitor Center and IR Program Peer Advisor. Most memorable was finishing second in the Varsity 8 NCAAs in spring 2021, as this was a true testament to team buy-in and mutual support. Nicole will work as a Sierra Camp photographer this summer, and then as a business analyst at McKinsey & Company in San Francisco. Alexandra Pocky is from Euless, Texas. She learned Spanish, minored in art history and Spanish, graduated with interdisciplinary honors in democracy development and the rule of law, and received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. She was co-president of Stanford Women in Business and a vice president for Pi Beta Phi. Most memorable was getting butterflies when biking for the first time throughout the main quad, as it reminded her that Stanford is such a glorious place and that she was right where she needed to be. Alexandra will attend a summer seminar at the London School of Economics before beginning work as an investment analyst at Evergreen Services in San Francisco. Jack Douglas Quinn is from Pound Ridge, New York. He minored in Spanish, played lead guitar for the Stanford Jazz Orchestra, interned with Inter-American Dialogue, and was a research assistant with the Political Psychology Research Group and Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research. Most memorable was pulling an all-nighter with his roommate the night before he had to leave campus at the beginning of the COVID lockdown and transition into a period of uncertainty. Jack plans to pursue a career in international consulting in New York City. Gina Maria Sanchez is from Sandia Park, New Mexico. She learned Spanish and Nahuatl and minored in human rights. She interned at the Clayman Institute for Gender Research, was a research assistant at the Center for International Security and Cooperation, and a mentor with Syria Youth Empowerment. Most memorable were her amazing late-night walks with friends from all over the world. Gina will pursue a Master of Science in Gender, Peace, and Security at the London School of Economics and Political Science.
Adrian's not yet. Yeah,
Emma Catherine Smith is from Oak Park, Illinois. She interned in Sarajevo and Doha, Qatar, learned Arabic, minored in human rights, and earned interdisciplinary honor in international security studies. She graduated with distinction, received the Lloyd W. Dinkelspiel Award for Outstanding Service to Undergraduate Education, an Alumni Association Award of Excellence, and a Scoville Peace Fellowship, and won the Hoover Prize for Writing in the Major. She was president of the Society for International Affairs at Stanford and a Children and Armed Conflict intern at the State Department. Most memorable was sophomore year, when her career idol Samantha Power walked into her presidential decision-making in wartime seminar as a surprise guest. She felt inspired and empowered to receive first-hand advice on how to follow on her footsteps. As a Scoville Peace Fellow, Emma will work with an international peace-building organization in Washington, D.C. Sophia Sosa is from Wellington, Florida. She studied abroad in Berlin and Florence, learned Spanish, German, and Italian, and was a research assistant with the Political Psychology Research Group. Sophia plans to pursue a career in product design and management. Ravichandra Tadigappa is from Mumbai, India. He studied abroad in Oxford, learned French and Latin, and double majored in economics. He graduated with a Cardinal Service Notation, interdisciplinary honors in democracy, development, and the rule of law, and is completing a master's in international policy. He received a Humanities Research Intensive Fellowship and South Asia Marquez Fellowship. He was president of Stanford Amends and a residential assistant in Hammarskjöld House. His most memorable experiences were studying abroad in Oxford, visiting Tunisia, and interning in Accra, Ghana. Ravi will work as business analyst at McKinsey & Company in New York. Shade Edward Vidal is from Parkland, Florida. He learned Spanish and French, minored in economics, and graduated with distinction. He interned with Merrill Lynch in New York, was president of the Black Student Union, and financial officer of the Caribbean Students Association. Most memorable was the mesmerizing abundance of new people and new possibilities he experienced at new student orientation. He hopes to carry this magical outlook with him as he begins the next chapter in his life. Shade will work in sales and trading at Bank of America Merrill Lynch in New York City and plans eventually to earn an MBA. Micah Heath is from Austin, Texas. He studied abroad in Brussels and Rwanda, learned Spanish and French, and was a research assistant for Professor Larry Diamond and with the King Center on Global Development. He received the Russell A. Berman Award for Excellence in an Introductory Seminar. He remembers most clandestine beach camping, no longer clandestine beach camping in Half Moon Bay with his fraternity brothers. Micah will work in management consulting in Austin. Frank McReynolds Wilder is from New York. He learned French, Italian, and Spanish and minored in history. He was a CSAC research assistant, Stanford Energy Club director, and Stanford Mendicant's assistant music director. Most memorable was returning to campus after the pandemic and being able once again to bike around campus in the sunshine and discuss interesting topics with peers and faculty before, during, and after classes. Frank plans to work in the public or nonprofit sector in Washington, D.C., and eventually pursue a graduate degree. Tenzin Yiga. Tenzin Yiga is from Missouri, Indiana. She learned Tibetan and Japanese, was president of the Stanford Tibetan Student Union, graduated with distinction, and received an Alumni Association Award of Excellence. Tenzin plans to work at a human rights research and advocacy nonprofit before attending law school. Nadav Shai Ziv is from Tenafly, New Jersey. He made study excursions to Poland, Israel, and the West Bank, learned French, and graduated with distinction and Phi Beta Kappa. He received a J.E. Wallace Sterling Award for Scholastic Achievements and William Wu Award for Excellence in Opinion Writing. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, Time, and the Jerusalem Post. Most memorable was a trip with 20 other students to Israel and the West Bank, a whirlwind tour of politics, history, religion, culture, and food that led him here directly from Palestinian and Israeli stakeholders. Nadav will work as a democratic ghostwriter, speechwriter, and communication strategist through the 2022 election cycle, and then hopes to travel while continuing to write. Congratulations.
All right, I was just going to say one last round of applause for all of our graduates. So, in addition to their diploma cover, they've received from some IR-branded swag in the bags that are on their seat. Those include a passport case and a luggage tag. So these gifts symbolize our hope that you will go away, explore the world, and also come back and visit us here on the farm where you'll always be welcome. As we close, I have a few people I want to acknowledge. I want to thank Dr. Paul Festa, our Associate Director. Paul, stand up. And Stephen Busa, our Student Services Officer. Stephen, over there. So they support our students through the IR program in countless ways, and they've been working tirelessly to put this ceremony together. So we're grateful to all their effort. I'm also grateful to several people from Stanford Global Studies who have been providing invaluable assistance today. Franco Arico, Arusha Patil, Donna Evan Keseth, and Audrey Zhu. Let's thank everybody. A big cast of people to put all this together and make this work. So finally, I think it is fitting as our final act of recognition is for all of you out there, your parents, relatives, friends who have supported all of these students through the years. On behalf of the IR program, its faculty and staff, and on behalf of the classes of 2020, 2021, and 2022, thank you and congratulations. And that brings our ceremony to a close. Enjoy the rest of this festive day.